All right, we have got a full agenda and it is 9 bells. I'm calling the meeting to order, and could Becky call the roll?
Hey, hold on just a second. I just want to make sure we're live. We are now live, period.
Okay.
Thank you. Jim Sheeline,
Here.
Arlen McLean. Arlen McLean,
Here.
Doug Farster,
Here.
Rick Humphrey,
Here.
Tom Kitson,
Present.
Larry Mamini.
Here. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes, any additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes. So moved by Kitson, seconded by Mimini. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Visitors, Mr. Copine. Nothing today. Mr. Nicholson.
Nothing's not on the agenda.
Jennifer.
Nothing for right now.
Great. David. Greg.
Just what's on the agenda.
Gotcha. Let's see, Kevin.
Just on the agenda.
All right, Paula. Gotcha. Amy.
Nothing at this moment. Thank you.
Alice. All right, Dee, you're with Alice. Good, very good. Thank you. And speaking of which, Courtney, Chris, and Jeff, know that you guys have something for us.
Morning, everybody. I've got Patrick Smith here from the company. He is the project engineer. And then, of course, Chris Hinkle's with me. We're here on behalf of the Celtics and Solar Project. As some of you may recall, this project is situated or proposed to be situated on 3,838 acres in the Celtics and Township. Our petition was filed on May 6th of 2021. We appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals on October 7th at several nights of hearings. Ultimately, the ZBA went into its findings of fact and unanimously recommended the project. So we're here to answer any technical questions. Well, I should clarify that Patrick's here to answer any technical questions. I'll answer any general questions that you guys might have.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
If none, we can move on, I guess. I think we'll probably get a couple questions next Wednesday. But are you gonna be, right? We just move on?
Yeah.
Okay, quarterly report. Are you next?
Oh. What happened to Jim? Yeah,
You can come back.
not the quarterly report, just the monthly report. Quarterly report is next week or next month, but Wendy, can you throw that?
I can't. Hang on a second. I'm trying to-
I've got it to, I'm sorry, to put up on the screen for all of you. And you should also have, those of you who are present should have a paper copy of the financials. There we go. So I was just, this is the preliminary for the end of the year, November. It could change a little bit yet because we haven't gone through audit and we haven't finalized everything. Obviously, that'll be over the next couple of months, but just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of where the financials ended up for the year. So we did end up with almost a $2.6 million surplus, which we have transferred to the capital fund. So if I go start at the top here, as far as property taxes were about 90,000 above where we budgeted. Sales tax were about 400,000 above where we budgeted. Income taxes were about 800,000 more than what we budgeted. Fees and fines came in at 1.2 million above where we were budgeted. 900,000 of that was zoning fees. So, you know, the one-time money of zoning fees that are coming in. And sales and services, which is things that we provide, like the sheriff's department provides staff for SBCC and some other things like that. So that's actually 55,000 up. So if you keep going down the list, transfers, which is under revenues, is a negative 2.6. That's because we transferred out of the county or out of the general fund, 2.6 million. 45,000 of that is matching money for Kevin's EMA grant. And the 2.6, almost 2.6 of that was for capital, went to capital. And then you can see the expenses coming down. Most departments stayed within budget pretty easily. IT actually went over, but we had contingency funds to cover them. We put contingency funds in the budget the year before because we knew there was going to be some changes to that department. So we have coverage there. And actually the county board is a little bit over. That's probably due to the hiring of a county administrator mid-year.
And
So,
negotiations went over too.
okay, and negotiations probably went over also. So in the end, though, we had budgeted for total expenses 10.8 million. We only spent 10.4. So we were actually 400,000 to the good when it came to that also, which is where we generated our surplus of 2.6, which has already been transferred to the capital fund. Any questions on that?
Any questions for Paula? All kinds of good news.
It is all good news.
Yeah.
There is also in your packet, and I wasn't going to talk about it unless you wanted to, but there's a breakdown of those revenue sources that we usually give you. There's also a listing of the capital expenses that we had. And so the capital at the end of the year has got almost $7 million in it after the transfer. And then there's another page with solid waste, public safety, highway, health, animal control, and road construction. So if you ever have any questions on those, just let me know. I wasn't going to go over them today because I know you've got a lot on your agenda.
So just one quick question for me, and that's where does that put us on as far as our balance on the capital fund? Where does that put us historically? You know that off the top of your head?
No, I don't. I'd have to go back and look. I'm not, I don't remember. Well, I mean,
That
I
might
know
be something
last
to
year.
have next month when you do quarterlies or something like that. That'd be great.
Yeah, okay. I can do
Kind
that.
of put that in perspective. Anybody have anything else? All right. Thank you, Paula. Okay, quarterly report is next month. Insurance committee, I know that the insurance committee doesn't have anything. Redco, Warren, do you have anything for us?
No, nothing.
All right. All right, we have the one Joseph Meyer approval. See, I always forget this. We need a motion to move that to executive. So any questions on the Joseph Meyer resolution? If not, I'd entertain a motion to move that to executive. Moved by Laram, second by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
motion carried. Old business, we have a boardroom technology upgrade update and
Not a whole lot to update, except we do have the iPads ordered. We're hoping to use those at the committee setting next month. And as you know, for the actual audio video in this room, we are having to go out for bids. So the request for proposal is being prepared now. So other than that, nothing to update unless you have any questions.
any questions for Wendy? Hearing none, we'll move on to the MOU with lots there. This is a carryover that we tabled. Actually, I think we have to bring this off the table. Don't we? Yes.
Yes.
Motion to entertain motion to take this off the table, moved by Forrester. It's Doug. Seconded by Bimini. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, okay, so it's now off the table. So there was just a question that concern that Arlen had, and I think Arlen, you got that resolved as far as you had some concerns that we were overseeing employees and you were a little concerned with language there. Oh, that's all right. Okay. So anybody have any discussion in regards to the MOU with lots?
I guess what's the reasoning for this? Because I mean, I came in and this was a discussion item before I was put on the board here, so.
So what prompted this was that there was a feeling that we weren't recovering, the county wasn't recovering 100%, our costs associated with giving support to the operations of lots. So this is a amendment. I think there was already.
So,
an
yeah,
MOU.
so we actually we had an agreement, a single agreement with the treasurer's office for the services they perform. We had a second agreement for the services the maintenance department provides. And then this year, through the finance budgeting process, we also needed another agreement for the insurance reimbursement from lots. And so the thought behind this was to consolidate all three of those topics under one memorandum of understanding, and that's what this reflects.
So as this entity grows, because they're looking to build in Ogle County, I would assume there's going to be additional duties required there. Does that branch then get shifted to Ogle County, or does it still come back to Lee County?
Branch.
Well, they're going to build a transportation system in Ogle County, right?
Well, remember that, they're going to be their own entity. Where right now they're actually, we have it's kind of funny. I look at this MOU as it's an MOU with ourselves. But eventually when we get lots as a mass transit district, they will be under their own authority with their own governing board. Now they may come back to us and want to do a different agreement, because this is just an agreement understanding what's going to be recovered from lots to us, with them still being part of Lee County. Eventually, when they become a mass transit district, then they are a separate entity, and that will require a separate agreement. Charlie, am I saying anything wrong? Thank you.
So in the interim, until that, I guess my concern is, or my question is when that gets up and running and functional and they add staff and stuff like that, is that when we're going to make the split? Is that the direction this is going, or are those additional employees then going to be under our umbrella, or Ogle County going to take some of that lead, or what's? I'm just trying to understand what's the future.
So I think, and I may defer Charlie on this, when it becomes, and of course there has to be 2 resolutions from each county, because it's Leo. Even though we're the lead county in regards to the grant, and of course, like 90, 100, almost nearly 100% of the money that lots spends, it funnels through us. We're the lead county. So when they become mass transit district, of course, we will provide part of that agreement, and the resolution will determine what the governance board is and how they operate moving forward. So that separation will occur as soon as the 2 county boards pass that resolution. Charlie?
I think you're absolutely correct in how you're describing that. It's a multi-step process, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be something that we have to decide how the breakdown is going to be of the assets, what the property is going to be, if the county maintains the property, if that's being given to lots through some type of agreement. It's all of this that's going to be occurring through the committee that's been assigned to it, the council from both counties, and then council assigned to lots.
So this agreement is intended, as Jim said, just to be the interim agreement until all of that takes place.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea when this is going to take place? I mean, any proposed dates or anything like that?
Your microphone, Charlie, on the new system.
It's fine if I don't talk at all. So the proposed dates on this is, again, it's a long ways out. I think to be really quick about it, to have this done and over with within 6 months is being really optimistic. I don't think that's even going to be possible.
Does the 2 board chairmen appoint people to the committee, or is that voted on by the public, or what? You know,
The committee was formed, man, how many months ago was that?
6 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. There was a committee to start working on the MTD, and that was passed here. I believe they also passed one in Ogle, and if not, it gave the opportunity for members from the Ogle County Board to be a part of that committee, and they have been a part of that committee.
Okay. So we need a motion in regards to sending the MOU, proposed MOU to executive, is that correct?
Correct.
So I'd entertain that motion. Moved by McLean, second by Mimini. All those in favor of moving the MOU to executive committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion, those opposed, motion carried. Nancy, we've got election equipment update payments. Is that anything? That's just information of what update of what's going on there?
Yeah, I just wanted to give the board an update on the election equipment. It is all arrived in my office on Monday. So I guess I'm looking for an okay to go ahead and send the bill on to finance for it to be paid out of the ARPA for paid in vacation.
That's why, do we need a motion for that?
ARPA already approved it and you approved it a month or two ago, so I don't know that you need a formal
Oh,
motion.
I think that we're all good on that. Nancy.
Perfect. That's all I had about that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. All right, on to new business. Any old business? Anybody have any old business to take care of? Okay, new business. Resolution establishing a claims committee. That is in your packet. And this is my understanding that we're not looking to move anything of this forward or
Yep. We are, yep,
we are,
we are.
it does get moved
yep,
forward.
this needs to move forward, yeah.
All right. You'd think I would remember that. after going through
Well,
this
there's a lot on the
morning.
agenda.
I know.
So just a quick overview of this. This is all part of the processing or the review that we've been doing of the claims themselves. That stems back about 6 months ago. It's kind of been an evolving process. Here's where we're at now. We're at establishing a claims committee that would, by your full board approval, be delegated the authority to pay the claims on behalf of approve or disapprove the claims on behalf of the county. What this is going to do is it's going to allow the claims to be paid twice monthly instead of once monthly. And one of the key reasons is that we'll then avoid all the claims paid in vacation. As the chairman can attest to, claims paid in vacation these days is amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it would be better for transparency's sake if it actually went through a formal committee as opposed to just through the chairman. Not that the chairman isn't trustworthy, mind you, but we like the transparency of that. It's also part of a process where the department heads will now, instead of filling out all the forms that they do, they are going to be directly going into, well, not directly, they're going to be going into a cloud version of the accounts payable system and directly entering in the claim itself, thereby saving a lot of paperwork and paper that goes through the process right now. So the vision is that the claims committee again would see all the claims and approve them. The individual committees, the individual standing committees will still see reports that identify what claims got approved by the claims committee, and you as a full board will still see a complete list of all the claims that got paid in the preceding month, and you will ratify that each month at your board meeting. So it's not going to take away your ability to see these claims, but rather just the approval process to keep the claims being paid in a timely manner and avoiding those claims paid in vacation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Hearing
What?
none. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
If this is passed to the full board, I mean, how soon are we gonna implement this? And
We're hoping for implementation in January. The first training for staff and departments is January 5th. So it's very possible we will implement phased in. So we'll do half the departments, in one phase and half in another, but we are looking for the claims committee to actually start meeting in January. That's the committee that will help us work through the policies and procedures of how the information flows. So yeah, we're looking at them meeting already in January. And the software, like I said, we've already got the training scheduled in January. So
Does the chair appoint the committee?
yep, and there will be another motion or another resolution coming forward with the appointments for the committee. We're still finalizing those, or I'd announce them right now, but we're still finalizing those. But that'll be moving before the full board this month. In addition to that, by the way, there's another document there, and that is the update to the board rules to reflect the claims committee's responsibilities. So you'll see a third document, all having to do with this efficiency of the claims process that we're trying to implement.
I'm totally for this. I guess my question would be is, I mean, what's our level of engagement and how we know if this is working or not working? I mean, are we going to review this after a month or two to make sure that the process is working out, or are we just going with this and it's either going to crash and burn or what?
So the claims committee is going to be a standing committee, which will report or will serve, the chairman of the committee will serve on the executive committee, and that chairman could also report to this committee if you want that feedback, but it will certainly be reported to executive. And to your point, Rick, yeah, we expect this to be a bit of an evolving process. You know, we've only just now getting our hands on the software itself to be able to, you know, be able to fine tune and tweak things. We know that's going to be happening over the next few months. Absolutely.
So the conversations I've had with the chairman has been, you know, let's move forward with the process, see how it works. It's probably going to need to be tweaked. One of the main questions he had for me was whether or not it should be part of a subcommittee of this committee or a standalone committee. It's been proposed as a standalone committee, and you know, we're dealing with claims, you know, understand. So you know, it's more of a look back committee or a here and now committee rather. And I'd kind of think of us as the finance committee. You know, I want this committee more looking ahead and anticipating things. And so, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, they don't have, there's nothing that they're basically more of a housekeeping committee, making sure that expenditures are hitting budgets and also being, you know, a notification to department heads that, you know, hey, maybe needing to look out because this particular line item is getting, you know, close and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I hope so too. You know,
Can I make a couple comments? If me,
who's making the comments? Oh, there you are. Okay.
sorry.
Yes,
So this also meets your statutory requirements of approving all of the bills. So you're going to have people who are a little bit more online because they're actually going to have access into the software and they're going to approve it in the software. So.
No, at our committee, for example, it's transportation solid waste. It can take somewhere, you know, 45 minutes to an hour, you know, by going throughout everything. And then you look at all the different committees, you have that all up and you got ones paid in vacation. I just don't want this committee to get bogged down with having to thumb through all the bills. You know, hopefully it works out.
Yep. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, I would entertain a motion. This again is be a motion to move this to executive. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Forrester. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right. Any questions on the revised meeting dates? The budget meetings? Wendy and I kind of did a pass through and kind of picked out some random dates. Anybody have any comments on that?
So there's two date items on your agenda. The first is to revise the regular standing committee dates that we post at the beginning of the year, and we're revising that to add the claims committee dates. And then the second one is your budget meeting dates, which we're doing this in advance this year unusually because we want to avoid the extra expenditure of having to publish those in the newspaper if they're not published at the beginning of the year. So by publishing them now, we don't have to go out to the newspaper and pay that fee.
But of course, if we run into trouble, we can always amend them. So,
And if we have more dates than we need, we can always cancel a meeting. So yeah, there's some flexibility there, but it's getting the majority of your dates solidified now and published now, so we don't have to do it individually in the summer.
Question.
go ahead.
We've got 2 days of budget hearings, 2nd and 4th of August. And then we have the social services one on that Monday night, and then follow up with the third day on Tuesday. Typically, we've been through the budget thought prior to the social services hearing, and then we just have a follow up or a wrap up after that. Is that an issue, I guess, is my question.
I don't see it as an issue. You know, because, you know, you're not talking a large impact on that, on the budget, on the overall budget from the special services.
This was different than the last one you sent out.
No, we're keeping basically the same format, Arlen, is what we did last year as well. You know, at first, and maybe has some feedback on that, you know, we changed up to where instead of having individual committee members go meet with department heads, we
just know that I left with 4 copies.
Yeah.
What is- I'll look and say.
Right. Okay, anything? All right. Move along to. Oh, I didn't. See, I need those, be able to jot down those notes. Do we actually need a motion to approve that schedule?
Yes, well, or to forward it on to executive, I would say.
Okay. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Humphreys. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. All right. On the board rules and procedures revisions,
Again, this is related to the Claims Committee, just adding as a standing committee, the Claims Committee for right now. And I'm noting that the Claims Committee will be responsible for reviewing all those claims. That's all we're attempting to do, but this revision.
okay, and this was again, motion to move this to executive.
Correct.
Although, moved by Tom, seconded by Liram. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, infrastructure as a service agreement.
So Paul Gorski put this on the agenda for administration, and he asked that it be tabled at administration. He wasn't prepared to present. So no action is required by this committee. It's already been tabled by admin.
So but this will come back at us, and what this is a, going to be a contract that will, we'll be contracting with an outside third-party firm to deal with servers and kind of the high-level technology that we have in the county. So. All right, move on. Amy, was there anything on the appellate prosecutor annual fee? This is kind of, do you know anything about this? Stacy's not here.
I think that's going to be Charlie.
Oh, Charlie, I'm sorry.
And
Charlie.
he's moving to a microphone.
So this is an annual fee that's been paid out. It's in the budget for the state's attorney's office. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. It was raised from approximately 12,000 to 15,000. And what it is that the appellate prosecutor's office helps out with any conflicts that come up, helps out with continuing education, advice that they can give to the office in terms of what we would look at for an appeal coming forward, that kind of stuff. In any event, it's actually been reduced now. It was 15,000. They've cut off 1,000 of it, so now it's for 14,000. And just looking for a recommendation from finance to executive, because I think it's already on executive's agenda to be addressed for the full county board.
Since it's just out of curiosity, Charlie, since it's an annual normally budgeted thing. I mean,
Yeah. There's a resolution that they have you pass. So the resolution, I don't know if it's in the packet or not. I sent it along to Beck. Okay. The resolution just has to go to the full board for its authorization.
all right, entertain motion to pass this along to executive as well. Moved by McLean, seconded by Humphrey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carried. All right, down to G, compensation for elected officials, county board members. There's a sheet. The last resolution, my understanding is that we did not get a recommendation from administrative. So this is just here for.
Yeah, and
Oh,
keep
we
in
have-
mind, Yeah, things get placed on the agenda early in the week because we don't know what will move forward and what won't. But administration did not take any action on this. They're still researching it.
This has to be set though prior to the next primary, is that correct?
180 days prior to the date the elected officials take office, which is early in December of 2022. Same thing for, well, similar for county board. There's another time frame. The county board per diems and salaries would need to be set. Although theirs is a little bit different timing. I think it's prior to the general election instead of prior to the date they take office. But in the next few months, you're going to have to be addressing this.
Question that I have is, this topic didn't come up that I'm aware of in budget hearings? Or was there money placed in everybody's budget for an increase in these elected officials' positions?
This will affect the 23 budget, not the 22 budget.
Right. So there's
Okay,
no
yeah,
reason
right.
for it to be in this
Okay,
year's
okay,
budget.
yeah, right. I didn't know that.
But you're right, and that's something that you're gonna have to remind us on, and I'm sure Paulo will, you know, but yeah, it's definitely gonna have to be a budgeted item. Yep. All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have a action request from the ARPA committee who moved to approve the next picture show funding request, and you have that in your packet. And the request was for $10,000 for replacement of their heating and air conditioning unit. I think what I'll do is I'll entertain a motion to approve the expenditure, and then we'll have discussion. So moved by McLean, seconded by Humphrey. All those are discussion.
Jim, our committee believes this will be approved, correct?
The ARPA committee made the recommendation
Right.
to us that this
So-
is an approved expenditure out of the
And
ARPA
of
funds.
this multiple $1 million that's out there to be done. When do we know that it's really approved? My concern is if we spend $2 million and they come back and say, you know what? $1 million of that wasn't approved. The county's on the hook for that money, or to get it back from the people who gave it to.
So,
I'm in favor of doing this. Don't misunderstand me.
yep, no, it's a fair
But
question.
what-
So
what's our turnaround time to know that it truly was approved?
So that's why we have Sarah as part of that. Part of her responsibility is to
Right.
make sure that she understands, you know, she's gone through the statutes and understand. So if there is a question, and I think she's been pretty conservative in my estimation as far as
And I'm not.
what fits the
I'm not
lanes and what
questioning
doesn't.
anybody's ability or.
No,
or
sure.
anything.
But I
My
think,
question is,
Yep.
what's the turnaround to know that the federal government or whoever has to finally approve
Oh.
it, does it? So we're not back on the hook at 2 years of, oh, by the way, you owe us all this money.
So this
I
is,
believe the system is gonna work. I just, for my own presence of mind, like to know what our turnaround is.
so this is unique to the typical grant where you apply for it, they approve it, and then they give you the money and you have to make sure you follow all the grant rules. In this case, they gave us the money, gave us the guidelines to spend the money and said, you're subject to audit, so be sure and spend it in the right way. I don't know that there is an end date, Tom, for how long they can audit us and say, did you spend the money in the right way, to be honest with you? So that's why Sarah's trying to be conservative and prudent and careful.
And I appreciate that, and I have no problem with what we're doing. I just, as we start into this, you know, it's a question of.
Right. Well, especially, that's why I think it's a fair question, the issue that you raised, because as we move on and, you know, we go further and those dollar figures get bigger and that becomes more of a concern. But Wendy explained it well. It's kind of part of the
Everybody's got
game.
Same issue. I guess. It just was
Sure.
something that, you know, like Mr. Point, you say, okay.
Right.
And they may get to the point where they say, okay, we're done, we're not auditing these anymore, but as far as I know right now, there's no end to when they could audit us and come back and say, yeah, we don't think you spent it in the right way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So your arm moved. All right. Any other further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving this to executive for approval of next picture show grant request, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No.
We have one no, motion carried. All right, on item I, approval of health insurance consultant, and I'll turn that over to Wendy.
So this conversation's been taking place for a number of months now. There were some questions last fall about whether we're getting the best bang for our buck with regard to health insurance. And this benefit staff consulting firm, which this is their area of expertise, they came forward as a suggestion. So we reached out to them and said, is this something you could help us consult through? Health insurance is, especially for an entity like us, is quite complicated. And so what you're seeing in front of you is an agreement to do that. A couple of important key things about this agreement is that this is not an agreement to expend $16,000. By the way, this was budgeted in the budget for $16,000. But the way this works is he steps in and based on the feedback he is given from this board and the insurance committee, he will continue to pursue the research to determine, are we getting the best bang for our buck? At any point, if the committee and the board is comfortable that we are, then he stops. So this is a not to exceed $16,000 contract as opposed to a $16,000 contract. Benefit staff, by the way, is an agency out of Bettendorf. They are a consulting firm. This is their area of expertise. We got their name and heard about them through the city of Dixon. And I believe Paula, through her work with the city of Dixon, had worked with them and suggested that we pursue this just to make sure we've crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's with regard to health insurance.
Just a quick comment, what I've discovered over the years is when it comes to health insurance, you really don't know what you don't know. And these people are going to help take care of that and fill in those gaps for what we probably really don't know.
And important to note, they're independent, so they're not tied to any insurance agency of any sort. They're independent consultants that can really work for us.
So their scope of work is to evaluate what we currently have or to look at options or both?
Both. So the options will come in if the evaluation comes back showing that maybe we have another direction we could go that would be more economically feasible or better in other ways. Then we say to them, okay, prepare that request for proposal and let's go out to bid. And then this entity would help us with that as well. But right now it's just evaluate and then potentially seek options.
So would our money be better spent to just, I guess, put together what we want for services and put it out for bid and to evaluate what we had against what we currently have rather than wasting time and energy in what we currently have? Because if we make any changes to what we currently have, that'll affect our premium anyway. So wouldn't we be just better suited to have them put together a package of what we want for services?
Can I comment again? We don't know what we don't know. And to put together a bid on something that we really don't know, are you going self-insured? Are you going to go with the pool? Are you going fully insured? All of those kinds of things, you need to do a lot of research to understand what that means. These guys already know how to do that. It's going to be quicker to go through them than to figure it out ourselves.
What you're
My
describing is what got us to where we are today. And where we are today is not where we want to be.
I think if we're going out for bids, we got to do it by September 1st. We got to give them 30 days notice or something like that. I remember. So this is just to see where we're at. So we're getting our money's worth. We missed the deadline for going out to bids in August. So this is where we're at for the next year.
Anything else? Okay, entertain a resolution or motion to move this to executive, moved by Kitson, seconded by Mimini. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, item J, Sickich, the revised services agreement. Wendy?
So this came out of the strategic planning meeting the executive committee had a couple of weeks ago. The desire when the administrator position was filled was to have the administrator take over the HR responsibilities. And we are working towards that goal. At this point in time, the recommendation that came out of executive committee was to retain Sickich, albeit for a different scope of work. The scope of work, instead of allowing department heads to directly contact or employees to directly contact Sickich, we are now going to an on-demand only agreement. And the administrator and or the county board chairman has the authority to work or to contact Sickich directly with an HR issue. So we're scaling back on the contract, whereas before the contract was for a specified amount, we paid them a certain amount every month. You're probably going to ask me, what's the contract amount? Well, that depends on how much on-demand service we need. The original proposal, just a broad estimate from Sickich, was something not to exceed $6,000 over the course of the next year. And again, that would be only for the board chairman or myself to reach out to them in the case of an HR high-level complex issue. It goes without saying that any of those issues we would also be consulting with our state's attorney on, but having an HR professional to turn to is also useful.
Didn't we go way over that on
Not this year, but the prior year we did. This year we're on target.
And that would include also the health department. That health department consumed quite a bit of time. So
Yes, and the health department has been reimbursing the county general for the time on an hourly basis, whatever they use, because Sickich has been tracking that, what department is using it, and then we're billing or essentially taking care of that behind the scenes with the health department, and they're paying their own services.
So the process for the department heads would be, if there's an issue, they come to you.
Correct. Yep.
Wendy, I think this is a great idea. I think it's something we could do. Everything about it's wonderful. One question I had, what happened to the health department? Are they on their own or will they come to you?
Potentially that they could come to me, but again, if they get into a complex issue, I think I'm going to advise them to maybe get their own on-demand contract. But right now, as it's set up right now, the idea is that they would come to us. This also means the administrator, myself, will take over the Family Medical Leave Act and disability processes that are in place right now. So that Sickich has been handling, but I'll be handling going forward.
This is more a question for Charlie with follow-up on Tom's question. I mean, ultimately, the health department's under their own board and direction, but at the end of the day, would any liability come back to the county?
So Charlie stepped out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see him over there, so.
I was looking at that thinking, Rick's gonna find this out.
Where did he
Yes.
go?
Yeah.
Yes, and I can't directly answer the question, Rick, but I can tell you that the health department does work directly with the state's attorney when they need, when they need consultation on these issues. So I think it's safe to say that Charlie would be involved in an HR issue, whether it be with the health department or any of the other departments.
I guess what I'm trying to avoid is for us to turn over full responsibility to the health department without us being unaware of what's going on in a situation that might come back to be our responsibility ultimately. So.
Yep, agreed.
Any other questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion, move this to executive. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Forrester. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Right. Old LEC repurposing and drawing cards. Mr. Nicholson, you are up.
Chief construction. Pass on again. To months, 5 or 6 months.
John, you're gonna have to get in the mic.
You can grab that one behind you.
Then I'm gonna sit back down. at my desk. I got notes for everything and all that. Only have 2 of these, but 29 pages each. That's the structural document. So, sure. Take fast. Take one. There should be enough of those preliminary sketches for everybody there. I think it's past 3 on each side. The drawings themselves are proposed sketches for the upper level parking, secured parking garage for the judges and probably Charlie. Down at the far end is a Sally Port schematic that's been vetted through the sheriff. All these could be slightly modified, but these are what we came up with. There's about a 40 by 40 area there that can be used by storage. It's up in the upper right corner of that drawing. And then the longer one of the 2 that I handed out secondly, that's the structural integrity report of the building. These were done by Wendler. They're structural engineers along with design engineers. The money that got that came through the board chair's budget. But now we're coming back for a little more money. Mr. Wilson probably will show up any minute now, but he's been deeply involved and he has the expertise to go through this. But what we're requesting right now from capital essentially is to go one step further and get some design drawings that'll include mechanical, architectural, and electrical costs, not cost, but drawings. I'm asking for $29,900. Going to use Wendler, probably will not, I'm asking for $29,900 not to exceed, with probably $15,000 being spent. And that will give us costs so that we can put it out for bid. And that's when we'll find out exactly how much it is. Over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we have gotten bids to tear down the building, rebuild it as a multitude of things on the empty slab. We thought about Sally Port, thought about putting the EMA up above that, various things, but in reality, we aren't not cost effective to do any of that. Probably would be somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million to do what I just described. We feel we can make a permanent home, consolidated home for the maintenance department on the ground level, parking garage on the upper level, along with the Sally Port, vastly improved Sally Port, for probably around $700,000. So there'll be a savings to the county and we'll get much more bang for our buck. Places like a Fortress, if you read through that structural report, you'll find there's virtually zero structural damage to it. It simply did not qualify as a jail anymore. There's some minor things we need to do repair wise. What we need is money now to go out with the drawings that I just described. And like I say, up to $29,900. The reason for that figure is $30,000. On the building attached to the right. To the right, the garages. The garages. Jail office, lower level jail office. The right of your drawing. Yep. Would have been the sheriff.
Oh, that 40 by 40. No, that's going to be storage space. County storage space. We right now, I mean, our voting machines, and I don't know where the new ones will end up. They're stashed in the old meeting room, for the OEC. And there's other storage that needs, we can wall that off. We can use chain link to separate that. Each department would have their own space for long-term storage. Plus there'll be area on the bottom that maintenance probably will not need.
So does this eliminate Greg's request for a building for maintenance? We talked about that. We said we'd come back to jail. Kevin had some stuff, had to find a home. Does this eliminate that cost?
Kevin has found a home for,
But does this eliminate the cost that Greg had requested at budget time for a building for maintenance?
please so.
Well,
Yeah, it's probably not gonna be the height of what we need because we're working with something that's already built. We'll be able to get our vehicles in there, but as far as anything too large, we won't be able to get them through the overhead doors because we're only gonna have an 8-foot ceiling. So it probably will help out tremendously, depending on what kind of equipment we get in the future. We probably are not going to be looking at a new building for a ways down the road if, you know, that comes to where we can't get equipment in because of the ceiling height. That's the only restriction that I really have with that. If we do happen to get a skid loader or something and we're taking pallets in, we got to be careful because, you know, 8 foot isn't very tall by the time you get a skid loader in there. So, but yeah, down the road, I would say if we need another building, it'll be way down the road.
so that's, I believe, the 600,000 you requested for a building at budget time.
It was 350.
Okay, so that's backed off at this point.
Yes.
And then this eliminates the sheriff's desire to build a new building for Sally Port and stuff. It's all included in this.
Yes, yes. Sally Port is in the
Seems
far
like
end
we
of
should
that
hit
building.
Costs and projects. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, along with 4 holding cells and a waiting room for correctional officers. Room enough in there for 2 cars, see that?
Yep.
And there are 5 stalls that are not included in that previously housed sheriff's items and or EMA items, and those have been vacated, and those will be used for maintenance storage also.
The only thing that wasn't in there, John, and I just thought of it, there will need to be an updated price on replacing that elevator if we do the Sally Port in there. The one that is in there now is not very reliable for taking prisoners in and out. I think we should update that, and we can probably get that figured out and get a price to you.
That'll be part of the design costs. When,
Just my concern is transparency on this stuff. because
absolutely.
Quite
As I
frankly,
say-
we have a jail today that costs taxpayers tremendously more money to run than we were told it would be. Taxpayers were told this building needed to be tore down because of all the cracks and so forth. I don't want to have to be justifying things to taxpayers that we did not transparently talk about. That's
You'll-
only my concern.
If you'll look
Please
through
don't lie
that,
to us with anything you do.
you look through that
We'll all get along
structural
great.
report, you'll be able to see that there's minimal repair needs to be done to that building.
But
To
that's
do what
not-
we want with it,
But John,
as a
that's not
jail.
that's
as
not
a-
what we told the taxpayers years back.
I know.
And that's,
But-
that's my concern is we remain transparent among ourselves so that we're not coming up with stories to cover up our inefficiencies and the problems we create. Okay. So just clarification.
If we had tore down that building, we would have had to rebuild the Sally Port area. Or we would have been prisoners from the front door of the court building.
I understand all that. I'm just merely saying we have tremendously more employees at a new jail than we said we would have to have, spend more money than we said we would spend. We can't afford to keep doing those kind of things. So please be transparent with us. Tell us the truth when we talk about it, because none of us are construction engineers and we represent the taxpayers.
Absolutely.
We feel very responsible that we have to be responsible.
I think we're saving the taxpayers as much as the initial cost to tear down the jail was. $1.3 million.
Plus you're repurposing that building. You're not using it to store inmates in there 24/7. You're just short periods of time where you're gonna have inmates in cells in the Sally Port area. I think the accommodations are gonna be okay for what we're fitting it to. With the jail, I don't think that was suitable for what they were trying to use it for because of the ventilation problems, and structurally, there's not a lot of structural damage on that, and we're gonna be using a lot of it for just storage areas. So purposing of it's gonna be totally different than what you're gonna be what is using it as a jail.
Yeah, I'm in favor of what we're doing. You remember, I suggest we use that building.
Right.
We want to build it. All I'm saying is we have to be work together and be honest and transparent.
Right.
We cannot
Yep.
pull the wool over the eyes of taxpayers.
We'll
Yep,
know exactly
I
what we're
agree.
doing when we do it. All I'm looking for right now is money to do the architectural stuff. Looking for money.
Well, that's everybody that comes to us, Tom, is looking for that. So Arlen.
We have an estimate, I realize the estimate. Get fed this one sheet at a time and one bit at a time. You have any guess? Yes. What's total cost?
We can't really give you a ballpark estimate till after we get a scope of work. And then we put it out for bids and then we see, I mean, we can give you a projection estimate, but it's like the HVAC, it wasn't even in the same ballpark, so. An engineer can tell you, you know, it's gonna be so this much, but till you get a scope of work and get everybody bidding it, seems like the price always comes down from what the projection price is because you've got more people competing against each other. So that has a tendency to get your price a little lower. So than what they project. That's what happened with the HVAC in this building. Projection price was a lot higher, almost double than what the bids came in at.
Go ahead, Liam, and then I'm going to call for a.
John
a
said
motion.
it's about 700,000.
Yeah, initially, that was a ballpark estimate, not only by Mr. Wilson is involved in commercial construction all the time. And we've gone through it multitude of times with the engineer, and it was between $600,000 to $700,000.
So the money that you're asking for, John, the scope of work is specifically to that, for someone to design.
Correct.
What you.
We have to get the design drawings with all the mechanical drawings and all the mechanical estimates before we can put it out for bid. Once it's put out for bid, we'll know what's going on. And then I'll come back to you either during or after.
So I would entertain a motion to move this to executive. To approve the expenditure up to $29,000.
Where was the money coming from? Because
This is coming out of capital. Okay. Yep.
29.9,
29,
but it
29.
probably will be more likely around 15 from what Mr. Wilson. the engineer. I don't want to underbid it because I don't want to come back. to the well.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Humphrey, seconded by Kitson. Discussion. Any further discussion on the motion? Tom?
Question, do we have any idea when we'll see that? I mean, what kind of
As
time?
soon as we can get it done. All I was looking for was your approval.
I mean, by spring, you'll have something.
Easily. Right. We've already kind of started the process. When I say that mentally,
Oh,
Well, I think, so as far as the bidding process, are you expecting to have, because we don't have this budgeted as, if I remember right, for this year in capital. So you'd be looking to have this
I'm looking to come
for next
out
year.
of capital into next year. As
In
soon
next
as I
year.
get the, get the drawings done,
Next year, meaning 2020.
come and talk to you folks
three.
and then we'll.
21, 22.
He means
We're in 20.
budget year
22,
That's what
22,
I want to
23.
clarify.
Yeah, so we're looking at 22, 23 budget year. Yeah. Okay. So this next upcoming budget cycle. All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. So this is motion to move to executive. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. John and Greg are still up. Approval of Old Courthouse VAC bid, and you should have the bid in front of you. And this was also, this is a budgeted item out of capital. Greg, go ahead. Do you want to walk us through the bid?
We put a scope of work together, Wendy and I, and we had it done for us. And that way we made sure everybody was bidding apples for apples instead of having such a wide array of different things that we'd have to sort through. That way they had to bid through what we were wanting done. We had 3 big contractors bid on the project. The highest bid was Helm Group at $373,800. The next bid was Leschers out of Freeport. It was $322,740. And Hartwig Mechanical came in they were the lowest bid at $299,900. And also Hartwig had a few things that was a little different, same scope of work, but a little different. They were changing the main disconnects for each unit up on the roof and also running the gas line. They found a chase in this building that runs from the basement all the way up to the rooftops. So they were going to run all their gas line inside. The other 2 contractors were going to run it visually outside, so we'd have to paint it or something to make it look better. I'm recommending that we go with Hartwig because they're low bid and they were going to do just a little bit more projection on that. Another thing is Commonwealth Edison. Me and Wendy are working with them right now. We're going to be able to see what kind of rebates we can get, but they won't tell us till actually we have the units on the roof and they go over and see what we have. So we will be getting some money back off of that. We just don't know how much at this point.
Jim, bear in mind, that's roughly half of what was budgeted.
Yeah, it was projected at 500,000 is what they projected the cost was going to be. So I really don't throw a lot of warrant on what they have for projection prices, because like I say, when you put it out for bids, everybody's, trying to get it down there as low as possible, which is very helpful when you have a scope of work and they're all bidding against the same thing.
You'll see in those bids, Hartwig is going to do a few extra things. They're going to, instead of running gas lines up the outside of the building, which to me would destroy the integrity of the building, they're going to run them up a chase. It was discovered that goes from basement to top. I don't remember what else there were.
Yeah, change the disconnects on the roof.
We'll make it a lot nicer. Less.
So I want to clarify something. This was not included in the capital budget for this year. There was a thought early on that it would be part of the ARPA money. We did not get that feedback from the ARPA committee that this would be a top 5 priority. However, it's my understanding that this will be presented back to ARPA next month in January. However, if this committee and the board waits to approve it until we see what ARPA does, we are going to be certainly looking at increases in pricing come January 1st. We've already been told that by the contractors. So my suggestion to you is that you consider moving this forward, whether ARPA pays for it or whether we dip into capital reserves to pay for it. And I say that only because if you'll recall, there was an early estimate to replace all HVAC systems in both buildings for something in the neighborhood of 3.1 million. We have isolated from that this building because this building, the need is much more critical. The units are not operating right now. And so I think that either way this has to be done. It's just a matter of the board determining how to fund it. And Greg, if I've said anything that's incorrect about the critical need, please speak up.
Nope, you're right on point.
So we've separated it from the original 3.1 suggestion to ARPA and to deal with this critical need first, and we'll deal with the other building at a later date. But right now we've got to address this one.
And one of the things you have to consider is the fact that, as we're all aware, the supply chain is kind of broke and we may not get this for 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, they're 14 to 15 weeks out right now before we can even receive the units. So it's going to be spring before anything gets done.
Did we ever get the money from the grant that Tom Demmer was lining up for us for repairs of this building?
We have not received that. Come to find out, there was some additional grant paperwork that needed to be filled out, and we're working on that now.
Spoke to Mr. Demmer the other day, and we will get the money, but they have a paper trail they have to fulfill, and Greg Gates is fulfilling that right as we speak.
Do you have any idea how long it's going to be?
No, I can't.
Because that now is our expense. That has come out of capital funding now. Correct.
Did, yes.
Because originally we thought there was going to be some extra money in that grant that could put towards this.
It was anticipated we would get, I believe it was 250,000 plus another 75. We got 75, 250,000 hanging. But
So that,
It's-
the tuck pointing has already been paid. So you're
Right.
correct in that we've incurred the expense to this point.
per Mr. Demmer, as of about a week ago, we will get the money, but we have to do paper. It's not going into a bid. It's not really a grant or not a. It's a given. We'll get it. We just now have to fill out paperwork. That was not the way Mr. Bowers initially understood it. I'm not passing the buck. That's what it was.
Do we lessen our chance to get? Do we lessen our chance to get the money if we prepay out of our own funds? It make any difference?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Because we're gonna fund the project with or without getting permission from the feds on that money, does it lessen our chance to get the money or not? Do we have any idea?
It was state money, and it was, according to what we understood, it was discretionary money that Mr. Demmer had. He was going to give us that money. However, it came with paperwork strings attached that we didn't.
We thought
realize.
this met our guidelines.
What's that?
We thought this met our guidelines to get it reimbursed from the feds.
Yeah.
Arlen, are we talking about the tuck pointing or are you talking about the HVAC system? Which project are you talking about?
I think Arlen is talking about the ARPA money. John is talking about Tom Demmer money. Right. And I may have confused everybody with that. I apologize. Two issues I think got mixed.
This was the money from Demmer, and this would have helped do some of the tuck pointing, which basically, we got such a nice bid on the tuck pointing that it will cover it all once we get it.
So Arlen, to address your question on the ARPA money with the HVAC systems, remember this is different than your traditional grant in that we're not getting Fed approval up front for these projects. We're essentially being given guidelines and told to spend the money. And if it doesn't meet the guidelines, then they could potentially come back after us later through an audit process.
And just as a reminder, the improvement of HVAC is definitely a qualified expenditure out of ARPA. So, and the function there would be simply that if the ARPA committee would approve that expenditure under the ARPA funds, it would come back to this committee for approval of that, and it's a done deal. So Doug?
Yeah, Rick, you're on the ARPA committee, aren't you?
I am.
Okay, maybe you could answer my question and make this brief. What was the holdup for not approving this as being one of the top 5 for the ARPA fund?
It wasn't a top 5 issue. In the top 5, it didn't make the top 5.
Okay.
So, and that's what I was just getting ready to say is, I mean, Paul, how much money do we have in capital budgeted for 2021, 22, I guess? Put any in there, for capital, do you remember?
I want to, for this, for
Next
which,
coming year,
the whole thing,
capital, what did we
it
budget?
was like $1.5 million, I want to say.
Well, I guess what I was gonna say is that, I mean, we just talked about at the beginning of this where we returned 2.6 million or something like that into the capital budget from last year. To me, this is an operating expense, and I mean, it's spread over multiple years naturally. I mean, we can run it back to the ARPA committee, but as far as I'm concerned, it's probably not gonna make the top 5. So we need to just go ahead and get this done and taken care of. And then if we come back and we decide that we have money left over for projects like this through ARPA, then we can get reimbursed. But as of right now, it's just get it done.
Rick, with the ARPA wish list, the top 5, where are we at with that roughly? How much money we spend it out at? What was it, 6 point?
Well, we only got 3.3, you got half of it up front. And then I can't remember the total amount, but I think we're pushing somewhere around $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, of expenditures right now. The biggest thing that we're waiting on, Doug, is that one of our top priorities was social services and things of that nature, and that really hasn't had an opportunity to kick in and to see what kind of need is out there for people and for different agencies. So before getting too much expended on other projects, we wanted to see what kind of a need or a want there is for that. So that's kind of why the hesitation to approve some of these other projects in my mind.
Okay, thank you. The group that sat here, board members that were invited and were here for that first ARPA meeting when they talked about it, we were asked to vote on priority list. And that priority list put county properties much lower than social services, taxpayer businesses and so forth. So just sitting there, right, no,
And I believe that, the statement was made by myself, if not others, that this top 5 priorities should be where we focus our initiatives initially. And as Rick said, if we have money left over, then you can look at the other things. But it was very clear that just because it didn't meet the top 5 priority, it wasn't necessarily not going to be considered. It's just that we were going to start with staff resources allocated to the top 5 priorities.
Wendy said exactly what I was going to say. Imagine that. Uncommitted funds, to answer your question, Doug, is at this moment in time, and we just approved 10,000 more from the next Expenditure show. So 2.6, 2,646,617. And the other half of the money is coming April, May timeframe. So we'll have the whole 6.6 with that time.
Mr. Chairman, do we need a motion to accept this or pass it on? Or
Yes, we do.
okay, I'll make a motion that we do whatever it is we need, whether it's are we passing it on or we're approving it from out of capital or what do we want to do?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, it would be.
All these other things said are good discussion, but ultimately we need to get this done. So
Exactly.
I have
So
a question. Why wasn't this budgeted? I thought we had a 5-year plan on the maintenance of this building.
Actually, they're working on the 5-year plan, Larry, and it wasn't budgeted because initially at the time of the budget process, remember, we had that 3.1 million that we were discussing sending through ARPA for this stuff. And so it was on the ARPA radar, but it wasn't on the budget radar. Plus,
and
we
we
just,
did that purpose.
yeah,
because
and plus,
that
we just
was-
now are
that
getting
was-
the,
Not a surprise.
yeah, we're just now getting the specific bid and again, isolating this building away from that building since there's a critical need over here.
So I have a motion on the floor to pass, make the recommendation on to executive to approve the bid. I have a motion from Kitson, seconded by McLean. All those in favor signify, or discussion? Any further discussion? Yes, and this would come out of capital. $299,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. All right.
I just have one thing to say. Larry, we are in the process of working up a 5-year maintenance plan. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Saunders, and myself, and you should see that shortly. We talked about that properties multiple times. I know. It's come to we get. Well, this all came about.
Just saying.
Okay, we are to letter M, which brings us to Mr. Kevin down there.
Want to discuss this Salamander Live application that originally went to Finance. Finance asked me to take it to ARPA. ARPA, again, as you already hashed out, that it didn't make the top 5. So some of the confusion was it was a 3-year program is what we did originally 3 years ago. You save 10%. It's $4,510 a year. Or again, if you do 3 years, you can save 10%. My recommendation is we just put the 4510 in the budget, leave it there. And that way we don't have to worry about it every year or every 3 years of trying to discuss this. So.
Refresh our memory, Kevin. What was this for again? I mean, I know what it's called, but what does it actually provide?
So one thing it does, it makes ID cards for the sheriff's department, my office. It also does tracking when we have a large event. People scan in, we can keep track of them. We know where their location is at the event. It also does their hourly rate. So if it is a FEMA disaster, that we don't have to come back and do all the paperwork on the backside, figure out who was where, what they were doing. That's kind of the small, quick version of it.
And what was the total expenditure again?
$4,510 per year.
Per year.
I remember talking about this at budget time, but I don't remember the answer. Was this in your budget at all, or and you were gonna get
No,
reimbursed?
it was under capital because it was a 3-year purchase, so we put it under capital.
Just gonna remember where it went, so.
Kevin, this question, does this, it tells you I'm there, it tells you I left. Does it
Correct.
track me at all?
It doesn't track you. You have to scan in with.
So if I'm lost in, for example, Kentucky, I'm lost in a tornado.
No, it doesn't, we're not putting a chip in your body and tracking you that way.
Oh,
We're
I-
tracking you by your ID card. So,
But the ID card doesn't tell you. I'm
No.
there.
no, not your, it's not a GPS.
All right, so again, entertain a motion, move this to executive. Moved by Forrester, seconded by Mimini. Discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
One more quick thing, Mr. Chairman, just for your information, we have had 892 customers without power last night. We're down to 541. We have 3 critical facilities, pumping stations and wells without power. And we had wind gusts over 65 miles an hour.
For your information, your chairman was one of those people that was without power about 3:30 this morning. So.
I could see that address.
You betcha. All right, good job, guys. We have completed our. No, it is not. It is old school. We use fossil fuels and lead. Anyway, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for under 5 ILCS 20-2 employment compensation. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Humphrey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call vote. Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry. Jim Sheeline,
Aye.
Arlen McLean, Doug Parster,
Yes.
Rick Humphrey,
Yes.
Tom Kitson,
Yes.
Larry Mamini.
Yes.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and then come back into executive session.
Welcome back.